I think that a lot of these people who are fear mongering about trans people also have a tendency to go, oh, well, then there's these kids pretending to be animals. And oh, they make things up. They lie. They say, oh, they're putting litter boxes in the classrooms now for these kids who are pretending to be cats. There's a huge prevalence of queer people within the furry community and plenty of trans people within the furry community. So honestly, my personal little opinion is that any criticism of furries is cloaked criticism of queer people more broadly. And particularly, I think it's a way of attacking trans people because lots of the rhetoric the last 8 years has been about, oh, I identify as an attack helicopter. Oh, you identify as a tree. Like, how can you identify as a doe? There's this whole otherkin concept. And so I think that criticism of furries is akin to criticism of people who actually identify as animals, which I don't think most furries do. And there's also this sensation of it being against non-binary people because non-binary people often express our genders in weird ways, like referring to animals, because that's frankly a more coherent concept than referring to man or woman as genders. And also, again, more broadly, a criticism of trans people, because any criticism of non-binary people is just, it's the same criticisms against trans people, but just narrowed down slightly to pretend like non-binary people are less acceptable when in actuality, all trans people are undesirables. So, but how it comes out is, hey, real quick, hit the like button if you're enjoying the content. Hit the subscribe button as well and turn on all notifications. And also take a moment to check out the links in the description for merchandise and Patreon, where you can find exclusive free content. Weird stuff like this. So in Oklahoma, we're going to look at a bill from Oklahoma. This is an act related to schools prohibiting certain students from participating in school curriculum or activities, requiring the student's parent or guardian to pick the student up from school, providing for removal of the student by animal control services, providing for codification, and providing an effective date. What? This is a bill that would introduce a provision where you could call animal control services to have a kid pretending to dress like a cat or like dressing like a cat, being a furry. You could have animal control services. So again, thinking about how this is a way of policing queer, trans, non-binary people, animal control services is one of those things it's kind of a wing of the police if we needed to police animals. That's basically what animal control is. So this is weaponizing yet another wing of control, of authority, of like being able to capture and imprison you, something that's normally not supposed to have anything to do with people. Keeping in mind also and recognizing how that aspect of dehumanization is the gateway to like genocidal practices against folks. So, it's basically saying, oh, if you're gonna act like an animal, then we're gonna treat you like one, and you no longer deserve the protection of human rights. It's dehumanizing, yeah. And I want to point out, before we get too much further into it, speaking of Doe, I mentioned earlier, Doe, I saw retweeted this saying, seeing state legislature threatening to call, quote, animal services on children that, quote, anthropomorphize in a wave against queer people, and thinking about how, quote, progressive liberals in the online left made a whole meme era about hunting me for being Doe. I'm sure it's nothing. Yeah, folks have been alluding to threats of violence against non-binary people who express their gender in this way. If I were like, I am like I'll say, oh, my gender is dragon or whatever, because I really don't actually have a sensation of gender insofar as like I don't identify as a demi boy or like genderqueer person. Like I don't really have a specific gender label anymore. And so it is fun, and it illustrates how seriously I take gender when I say my gender is pizza or my gender is dragon or doe. Like, I don't think that Doe even says that that's what their gender is. It's gender. I think that Doe is much like me, just like, I don't care about this anymore. I am non-binary. I'm going to do what I want medically. I don't care about your specific labels. I'm just going to go by Doe. That's what I am. I am Doe. It's not that complicated, but like these people are literally, I don't know what exactly it is. Okay, so let's keep reading this law. Let's like look at it. Okay. Students who purport to be an imaginary animal or animal species, or who engage in anthropomorphic behavior commonly referred to as furries at school shall not be allowed to participate in school curriculum or activities. This is dress code gone insane, because honestly, I think that most of the things that would make someone seem like a furry are things that are already not going to be allowed in school for the most part. Like, I don't know about you, but when I was in school, we were not even allowed to wear hoods. Like, if it was cold, we would wear hats. But and I think that maybe even there might have been restrictions, like certain times of the year were more acceptable to wear head coverings than others. So it's like even the cat ears themselves, you could very easily just say, it's a distraction. We should dress code this. Easy. And like, I'm not saying that I really enjoy or appreciate, because I think that dress codes are often stupid and they're badly applied anyway. But point being, this bill is saying a person, like a student who engages in any kind of imaginary play behavior related to pretending to be an animal or something. What age does this go through? Like, I don't know that this specifies an age group. So does this mean that any elementary age child, let's say a kindergarten or first grader, who is engaging in imaginary play as an animal, that if they go too far and it starts to seem like they might be a furry, are they like not allowed to participate in school curriculum or activities? Not being allowed to participate in school curriculum, does that mean that you're not even allowed to participate like from home? Is this effectively kicking the students out of the school? You can't even get online classes? It goes on to say the parent or guardian of a student in violation of this section shall pick up the student from school, or an animal control services shall be contacted to remove the student. Like, this is real. This is the text of a bill from Oklahoma, HB 3084. Like, this is real. You think this is fake? It's not. And that's basically the whole thing. That's basically the whole bill, is just if a student seems like they might be acting like a furry, they are going to not be allowed to participate in the curriculum, and we might call animal services on them. I don't even know what to do. How do you even respond to someone going, oh, if you're playing pretend like you're a furry, then you literally don't get to have an education? Okay, I've said this before. We've discussed this education issue before. Like, when you're limiting the right of a trans student to use the bathroom that they feel comfortable in, you can't reasonably be somewhere for longer than a couple hours if you are not allowed to use the bathroom. So there was that girl a couple years ago. I talked to Tahim about it on his show, and she was like, you're not allowing me to use the bathroom at school, so I'm going to do education from home. Can you provide me with the information and classwork that I need to do it from home? And she was like, I'm not going to go to the public school. If you're going to provide me with some shitty option, like, I think they were going to, oh, you're only allowed to use the bathroom in the office. Which, if you're in a multi-story school, are you really, like, how reasonably can you even get to the bathroom in your passing period if you have to go from upstairs down to the office and then back upstairs? There was that also recently. Riley Gaines outed or tried to out a teenage girl on a scholarship for volleyball to University of Washington. These people are trying to strip educational opportunities away from trans people. Again, if we're looking at the fact that furries are a representation of queer behavior, queer people, trans people, identifying as a blah, blah, blah. Yeah, furries are a key wedge in to discriminating against trans and queer people just in an indirect way. And yeah, they want to eliminate our educational opportunities. They don't want us to have scholarships through sports. They don't want us to be present around other students. Yeah, basically, they're appointing the schools to become bullies themselves. They'll nominally pay lip service to the idea that schools should be against bullying, but being so far down the rabbit hole of Christofascism that bullying is seen as the only way to preserve rigid social norms. Right. And they've even said at the national level, we saw them in a Senate meeting recently, I believe it was, that they know that it's effective to use social stigma and shame and social rejection to get people to detransition or to not transition in the first place. That's why, like, the overwhelming majority of detrans people are only doing it because they're like lack of social acceptance, and most people who detrans go on to retransition later. because they end up realizing that it doesn't, they find the social support they needed. They realize that their internal expression is more important than that, like whatever it is. But they know that social shame and punishment are ways that will get some amount of trans people to desist or kill themselves. They don't really care which. So, true, this is what happens when your Facebook boomer uncle becomes a legislator. Someone in chat suggests that they might not even actually call animal control. They'll just call the police and arm them with animal control equipment. Maybe. If I had $1 for every time I've seen a right-winger unironically say something that essentially boils down to, we need to bring back bullying, I'd have a lot of dollars. It's bizarre how comfortable Americans are with cops in schools. I mean, it's normalized. Like, it's so strange how many deeply fascist things we are just used to on a regular basis. And I think that's kind of one of them, that we're just accustomed to there being police in schools. There isn't a cop in every school. I'm pretty sure that these white schools don't really have resource officers, but I grew up in areas where there were brown kids, and so we always had cops in the school. Usually just the one, but like at least the one. The idea of calling animal control on a kid pretending to be an animal is crazy. At my school, we pretended to be war mechs on the playground. Who would they have called then? Homeland Security on your ass. Don't even play Divinity. They did have a resource officer at my very white school. Seemed like an easy gig for him. He just sat in the hall. Yeah. Well, I guess so at your very white school, did you guys have metal detectors every day? Because I will say, at least the resource officer in my school had a job, and that was like in the morning to direct we had to literally put our bags through those like airport x-ray machine things, and we had to walk through metal detectors like every day. I never personally had drug sniffing dogs at my school, but yeah, it sucked. I hated it. It does not start your day off very well. Like, okay, this is a little bit of a separate issue. I'm kind of starting to go on a tangent here, but can I just say how awful it is as a student to start your day having to go through that level of security? Like, every day, as a matter of course. If you show up late, if you show up at like 10 o'clock, then yeah, they usually don't have I mean, at least me, I was a white kid. They didn't personally check my individual bags, although it wouldn't surprise me if they did make that part of the thing. Or, I mean, the other thing that it reveals is that it's just security theater, because you probably could still get away with bringing things in that they didn't want you to. But yeah, I mean, it just really is not a good way to start your day. Gotta say, I don't even think the Russians have thought of banning furries. Yeah, so the lawmaker who's targeting furries in schools, by the way, just to be clear, is Justin Humphrey, Oklahoman. We have a little article here that was posted in chat. Humphrey has filed a bill targeting, quote, furries. In a video talking about the bill, Humphrey said he doesn't want to see kids using litter boxes. Again, the litter boxes lie. The people have, quote, lost their minds by allowing students to, quote, pretend to be animals at school. If you've got an animal coming to school, how about we vaccinate them? How about we get them neutered? How about we send them to the pound? This is literally exactly the way that people were talking about Doe like 2 years ago. Do you think that that makes you look like a sane person? It really makes you seem like you are less sane than the kids who are playing pretend. Like, I can much more easily understand the idea of kids playing pretend and having fun, pretending to be animals. Like, oh, I enjoy wearing the cute little cat ears. But the idea of being like, oh, well, sure, if you're gonna act like, it's so abusive, isn't it? You know, like, oh, if you're gonna act like an idiot, I'm gonna treat you like an idiot. That's the kind of shit that, like, that echoes back for some of us who have abusive parents. You're just waiting for any excuse to do something extremely fucked up and abusive, and you're taking the opportunity. Yeah, it's literally, yeah, if you don't stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about type logic. Does this rule still apply on Halloween? Like, what are they gonna do if half the girls in the school show up as cats? I would assume, yeah, it doesn't list any exceptions for Halloween. It would have to be pretty malicious for them to apply it on Halloween. But I think that what's going to result is that schools are no longer going to allow costumes during Spirit Week or Halloween. Anybody else have Spirit Week, where they would have days where you're supposed to dress in a certain type of costume, not specifically Halloween oriented? Yeah, and they will only selectively apply this to LGBT kids. Yeah, many Christian radicals hate Halloween already. It's a win-win for them. They just get to completely eliminate Halloween. So Justin Humphrey, he's been serving in the House of Representatives in Oklahoma since 2017. He has authored other bills related to law enforcement, crimes and punishment, and prison reform. This year, along with the bill seeking to ban furries from public schools, Humphrey authored another bill that would classify anyone of Hispanic descent who is a member of a criminal street gang and has been convicted of gang-related offenses as having committed an act of terrorism. Cool. So that's the guy who's sponsoring this bill and who pushed it forward. It wouldn't even require costumes to break this law. No, it wouldn't. Yeah, you could stage a protest by getting a bunch of students to refuse to say anything other than meow for a set period or for a day. Like, today is meow day. We are only going to make animal sounds. And then there's, I could see some students having fun with that. Like, oh, bark, bark. And like refusing to answer questions and things. Students can't really meaningfully protest by stopping going to school because then, the whole truancy laws crap. But they can go and refuse to participate. Here's the video of him explaining himself. It makes it very clear that this is a disinformation and propaganda campaign against trans people. Okay, let's watch it. Pretty bold to write into the actual law that it's only terrorism when brown people do it. Oh, and aside from discriminating against queer kids, it's also a way to discriminate against autistic kids who often express play in unorthodox ways. Here we go.
Do you think that kind of behavior distracts from other students? And I would say absolutely.
The bill says students would be picked up by a parent or animal control. That part, Humphrey says, was a joke. The line about the animal control officers in the bill was sarcasm then?
Well, here's the deal. What those people ought to be is mental health. I mean, we can always change the language.
What those people ought to be is mental health. What? So, you could have written into the law that they need to be, that they need to be admitted into a medical place, because there are those kind of psychiatric places. But no, he said animal control.
That we should get these kids to some mental health experts.
House Bill 3133 would require labeling.
Did he just not answer the question of are you saying you put that in there as a joke? Because they're gonna try to enforce it that way. He's a super serious legislator. Yeah, I don't know. He didn't respond to her claim in that clip, at least, that whether it was sarcastic or not. Yeah, what's really great to put in laws and creates no ambiguity at all? Jokes. We should put more jokes in our laws, as a matter of fact. Why do you have a job still? Go get a different job, not doing this. I'm just gonna start claiming that laws I don't like are just jokes. True. Oh god, is there anything else in here from him?
Known gang member a terrorist if convicted of a gang-related offense.
Okay, I think that might be it from him. Oh wait, got a little bit more from him?
Now wants to change it.
All politicians seem to never want to say I'm wrong. I have no problem if you're around me. I'm wrong quite a bit. But I do believe after listening to people that we can improve the bill by saying undocumented, and I think it makes it a much better bill.
Representative Jacob Rosecrans says the
Okay, cool. Do we have any more from this dude? Maybe one more? No, we got a different dude now. Different dude. Yeah, just wants to crack down on queer people. Just wants to force queer people to, bringing up the mental health thing again, making it seem like, oh, furries need mental health help as opposed to, their children engaged in play. Man, how old do you have to be to forget what it's like to be a kid who likes to play pretend? They're able to imagine that it's a kid playing pretend when it comes to a kid's genuine, earnest gender, but they cannot, imagine the concept of play when it's a kid dressed as a cat. He's not the most divorced dad ever. That title goes to Elon Musk, but he does have divorced dad vibes. Someone needs to check this guy's internet history. Gotta improve that Beal. Dude talks like a literal cartoon. Yeah. This is the kind of guy who can only visit his kids on the weekend, but doesn't. Yeah, Violet points out, as a reminder, we have literally hundreds of anti-trans bills being made, and it's not even the end of January. This is most likely a fake bill to distract from the explicitly anti-trans bills that do the same thing. I mean, yeah, it's so weird, introducing laws this way as a means of doing something stupid and wasting time and distracting from other more important things. It's so dumb. I mean, it's probably not dumb. It's probably a very well thought out political strategy, but I hate it. Hi, thank you so much to all of my patrons, especially Tiago Nascimento, Mersh Rolvag, Amanda B., Michelle Frateroli, Michelle Winter, Wellington Marcus, Danielle McDonald, DZXN, Suzanne Maynard, Spooky Heather Sylvia, Jamie Jam, Pasnell Infinity, Nova, Elizabeth Bartell, Sojo, Sarah A., Athiet, Kevin Young, Celeste, Desi Quiche, Liam Hodgson, Mr. Atheist, and Ella V. Nobody.